Welcome to Daf HaYomi B'Halacha. We're learning Mishnah Brura Siman Aleph, which is Hilchos Hanhagos Adam B'Boker, the way to conduct oneself in the morning. We're up to Sif Gimel. Today we're going to be seeing Sif Gimel, Daled, and part of Hay, not the Ramah. So we're going to begin in a moment, but we are going to be addressing the following three major questions today. And the three questions that Dirshu poses is, should a person learn Torah instead of reciting extra tefillos? Which parshiot should be recited daily? And the third question is, what is the proper way to mourn over the destruction of the Beit HaMikdash? So these questions are going to be answered in these next sifim. So let's begin with Sif Gimel. Ra'ui l'chol yirei shemayim. It's fit for all those people who fear Hashem, she meitzer v'doyeg al chorban beis hamikdash, that a person should be constantly worried and thinking about the destruction of the Beis HaMikdash. So let's see the Mishnah Brura. V'hamekubalim harichu ma'oid. So they were ma'orech very much, b'goydel milas kimas chatzos kirabihi. When it came to staying up until midnight, ukvar nidfas b'sidurim Seren Hanhagas Apakisvi Ha'arizal. There was Man Chatzos, when it comes to midnight, who Tamid Bemsiyos Alayla, Mamish B'chol Makaim, middle of the night, Yafil B'leos Aruchos of a Katsarais, even if it's a long or short night, the He Yud Beis Shoyis Achachatze Yoim. It's talking about the regular 12 hours. Now, Va'es Lis Oinein Al Chorban. What is the way to think about the Chorban Abayis? You should start thinking about the Chorban before midnight. It says only afterwards you should learn Torah. So you should focus on the Chorban before Chatzos, and then learn Torah afterwards. And at the end of the night, you can ask Hashem for your needs. Some say this. These psukim shermel maboiker, v'himhu korev l'netzacham, if it's close to sunrise, yomer hamizmorim, you should say the various mizmorim levad, v'yadalik hakinois, v'yachachach yomer shermel maboker, v'yachar tikoin shir mishnayis, koidem chol davar. He says that tikun shir mishnayis should come before everything. V'im zacha l'chachmas emes, esahi mesugelas ma'oid. So this is a time which is masugel to be able to reach the highest level of truth and clarity in your learning. V'achronim kiblu, they're makabel from the fact that it says shichvi ad kumi, hainu mishvuos she'omrim shichvi ad tishabav she'omrim kumi, ein sarach lakum b'layla. During that time, this is a special time that a person does not have to get up in the middle of the night. Yesh omrim mi tu b'av ad tesvav b'ir yokum, during that time to get up. V'anohagim al pia kabbalah sarvim shesarach lakum tamid. The Kabbalim say you're supposed to get up all the time in the middle of the night. Kabrush nischabru yachad loimer tikun chatzos b'tzibor elam manam. Don't hold those people back from saying tikun chatzos v'adarabba brabam hadus melech. The fact they do it together is noteworthy. V'tov yoser shyomer as a tikun b'beis achneses kishamruhu b'cheder samachlo. That's good that should be said in the Beis HaKnesses, to like a room near it, not in the Beis HaKnesses itself. The Beis HaKnesses Kaddish Tfei V'gam Shihu Masari Shainim V'sarch B'yichud L'yizar Ma'od Ma'od B'sichas Chulin M'neirim B'layla. When you get up in the middle of the night, you should be careful not to just speak frivolous talk. And on this, the Biurim Musafim adds to this and says, Vatam Adavar, the reason for this is Shumishim Shlo Ivri Laila El Girsa. The whole purpose of the night was for learning. That a person should not be mavatal the night. Kaidim or boker. If a person can't get up before the morning, that you're going to be exhausted basically all day. Sleep what you need. Yitzahar ma'od lakum shal l'pachis chati shal kodim kriyas hashamash l'beis hachnesas kadei sheyuchel hachin atzmo l'spalel b'tzibur v'nikiyus. So you should at least get up a little bit early, so you should be able to daven properly. And on this 26, it says in the Biur Musafim, he says that shadai l'adim b'shmoyne sha'is. It's proper a person should sleep 8 hours. Shekol zehu ad gil chamishim, until you're 50 years old. Gil chamishim el, once you're 50, dalishon chamesh or sheish sha'os b'layla. You can sleep 5 or 6 hours is good enough. Then quotes Rav Kanievsky, sheba oifin rogel sarch adam lishon sheva sha'is b'yoyme. That a person should sleep 7 hours a day. Okay. Obviously, it depends on your own physical abilities. Back in the Mishnah Berurah, shehi meitzer avol haTorah v'tefillah hehi b'simcha. When it comes to Torah, you're supposed to be learning Torah with simcha, with joy. Let's see if he says anything over here. As it says, Ivdu es Hashem b'simcha v'tama davar shein lidoig liyos meitzer al chorban habayis b'shas halimud. Why should you not feel bad about the Beis Hamikdash at the time of when you're learning Torah or davening? Shumishum shetfilos keneged tmidim tiknum. Very interesting. So he says, because the whole notion of davening is keneged the karbanos. So Amar Zal shegadol tefillah yois min karbanos. The Gemara Brachos says that tefillah is even greater than karbanos. V'chein Amru so to Masechtas Menachos beinin lima Torah shkol oisib Torah ki'ilu hikrav karbanos. Someone who learns Torah, it's like you brought karbanos. V'imkein ein lo adam b'shas oisig b'inyanim elu lidoig v'yos meitzer al chorban habayis. You shouldn't be stressed out during learning Torah, during davening of the chorban habayis, because all of these different things are connected to karbanos anyway, so therefore you shouldn't be focused on the loss, because you're really doing comparable to what would have been done in the time of the Beis Hamikdash, like a ki'ilu. Okay, fine. So this actually addresses our first question a little bit, which was, what is the proper way to mourn over the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash? So it's appropriate for all Yerushalayim to feel pain over the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. This is what Dirshu says. Nonetheless, a person should perform his avodas Hashem with a spirit of happiness. A person can inspire himself to learn and daven with joy by reflecting on the idea that davening is more important than the karbanos, and Talmud Torah is equivalent to bringing karbanos. Since he will be learning and davening, he does not have to become discouraged because of the Chorban. It is appropriate to arise before midnight to lament and wail over the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. The Mekubalim instituted a special order of midnight prayer on this theme known as Tikkun Chatzos. Some people have a custom not to say Tikkun Chatzos between Shavuos and Tisha B'Av, which is what we said. Okay, let's move on. So we answered one of the three questions. Let's move on to Sif Daled. Toiv ma'at tachnunim b'kavanim maharbish below kavan. It's a pretty famous quote. Better to say a little bit of davening and supplications with kavana than saying a lot without kavana. So quality versus quantity. Clearly, quantity is not the winner. Quality is what matters the most. So let's look at the Mishnah Berurah. Obviously, if you can have kavana and do a lot, that's the best. If let's say you can't do so long, you figured yourself out. You're not going to have kavana. But if you say a little bit, you'll at least have kavana. So at least you had the right kavana. So even though you minimized it, but at least you had the right kavana. That's the main thing. So according to the Mishnah Berurah over here, it sounds like he's pretty clear that a person should focus on learning Torah more than davening. All these extra supplications. A person should learn some musar. And he quotes the Ari and the name of and the Gra. Says the bi'urim umusafim shechiv limud b'sifri musar hu b'chol hashana. You have to finish a sifri musar every year. Ki gadol mechaver yitzur gadol menu. A person, as it says this in Sukkah, the more a person has is greater, the Yetzer Hara gets stronger. V'tabon Yetzer Hara hu toichachas ma'amori chazal. And the way to be able to spice and to cause problems to the Yetzer Hara is by learning Torah. Okay, I think this addressed our question number 2, which is, should a person learn Torah instead of reciting extra tefillos? So this is what Dirshu says here. There are various extra supplications printed in the Siddur, which a person can say daily. The poskim hold that it's better to recite a few of them with proper intention than to recite many without kavanah. One who wishes to say many of them but is unable to, whether because of circumstances beyond his control or difficulty in concentrating, is regarded by Kadosh Baruch Hu as if he recited many of them with kavanah. The extra supplications are only an addition to a person's daily routine, so the recital does not override basic obligations such as Tefillah B'Tzibor or saying Shema and Shemona Esrei on time. Similarly, one who can study Torah should learn instead of reciting extra supplications. So it's very interesting. Again, that was the language of the Mishnah Berurah. Okay, we're going to finish up with Sif Hey, and we'll see a little bit of the Bir Halacha. It's a lengthy Bir Halacha. So he says, Tov Lomar Parshas Hakeda, Parshas Hamon, the Aseres Hedibros, Parshas Oila Mincha, Ushloim Vachatas V'Asham. So that's where we're going to stop. So it's good to say all these different things. The Akeda. So he says you should do it. Says the Mishnah Berurah, Kodim Parshas Karbanos. V'Yachal Loimer Parshas Hakeda, Parshas Hamon, Afil b'Shabbos. You can say these on Shabbos. The Ein Dai Ba'amira. Ella, she's boinin mashu aimer v'yakrin deflois Hashem. Don't just say it, but you should actually be thinking about the wonders of Hashem when you're saying it. L'chein mashu Amar b'Gemara kol ha'omer tehil David shlosh pamim b'chol yom muftach l'shem haba gam ken b'oifen zeh. If a person says Ashrei 3 times, you're muftach l'shem haba. It doesn't mean you're just saying the words. You have to internalize what's being said. The Talmud mirs kol zeh ki parshas hakeda k'di lizkor schus avos b'chol yom. We have to remember schus avos constantly. We have to remind ourselves of what Yitzchak did. He was moiser, that he was mavatal his own will for the will of Hashem. What's the deal of the mon? So Parshas Hamon k'di shiyamin b'chol shechol mizonasav boyin bashkacha pratis. That all the parnas that we have is coming from Hashem. Hamar b'lo ha'adev v'mamid lo hichser v'harish she'ein riboy ha'hishtadlus moyel me'uma. That you can work so hard. You have to put in hishtadlus, but if you go above and beyond it, you don't have a time to sleep, to eat, to think, to do anything, to do avodas Hashem. It's not necessary to do that. It's also brought in Yerushalmi and Brachos, says the Mishnah Berurah, Kol Omer Parshas Hamon Muftach Lo Shehu Yismatu Mizayin Shelo Yismatu Mizayin. You're not going to lose out on food. Why the Aseres Hedibros? Because Shiasku B'chol Yoim Ma'abed Har Sinai V'Chazik Munaso B'Hashem. By saying the Aseres Hedibros, it strengthens our Emunah. U'Parshas HaKarbanos D'Amrina B'Menachos Zos Toras Achatos Kol Oisik B'Toras Chatos Ki'ilu Hikriv Chatos. So if you talk about the karbanos of the chatas, it's as though you brought a chatas yourself. Okay. Ushlamim. So why carbon shlamim? But within Parshas Toda, which even though we say Mizmor Soda, the Gamhi B'chlal Shlamim, V'yachar Oilu Shlamim V'toidi Yomer Parshas Nesachim, about the libations, Kin Zevach B'lo Nesachim. When it comes to a carbon Zevach, accompanied it are the Nesachim, the libations, even though the Gemara says you could bring the Nesachim by itself. The Chatas Hashem does not require Nesachim. The Chatas Ein Magin Avram Shekosav the Im Yodeh Sheschayv Chatas Yosim Parshas Chatas Koidim. If you know that you did something wrong, that will be Chayv Chatas, then you should say that first. Even though the other Poiskim are not so clear, that in fact is the din. Okay, so and again the beer halacha echoes a lot of the things that we just said. Okay, let's look at question 3. So which parshas should be recited daily? It is proper to recite the following parshas every morning: Akedes Yitzchak, to invoke Zechus Avos, The depiction of Yitzchak's willingness to sacrifice his life also assists in subduing the Yetzer Hara. 2. The falling of the mun to serve as a reminder that Hashem is the ultimate provider. 3. The Seres Dibros, which recalls the revelation of Har Sinai. 4. Psukim, which discuss all the karbanos, ol, shlom, mincha, chatas, asham. Reciting psukim about karbanos is the equivalent to bring the karbanos. It is proper to study the halachos of the karbanos to familiarize oneself with the concept in these psukim. Ad kan.